You feel it before they speak, the tension in the room, the hostility under the smile, the lie before it leaves their mouth. Everyone else misses it, but your nervous system is screaming, and right now, it's killing you. Because while everyone else is oblivious, you're carrying their rage, their anxiety, their unprocessed trauma, all of it flooding your system like it's yours. You've been told this is what makes you special, that your ability to feel everything is your superpower, that the healed version of you will be even more open, even more available, even more accepting. That's the trap. Carl Jung spent decades studying what actually happens when empaths integrate their shadow. The clinical reality is brutal, and it ends every relationship that was built on your self-erasure. A fully integrated empath doesn't become more compassionate. They become surgically selective, not through cruelty, through immunity. In the next 26 minutes, I'm going to walk you through the 3-stage transformation Jung documented. Not the spiritual bypass version, the version that turns sensitivity from a wound into a weapon. You'll understand why your empathy was never the weakness. Your inability to say no was. This is what happens when an empath finally heals. And it's far more dangerous than anyone admits. Let's begin. Before integration, you exist in what Jung called permanent psychic porosity. Your nervous system has no filters. You walk into a room and register emotional frequencies others can't detect. The anxiety before anyone speaks. The hostility beneath polite words. The depression someone carries but never names. This is differentiated perception. You developed it the same way soldiers develop threat detection, through necessity. Perhaps you had a parent whose mood determined whether the day would be safe or chaotic. Perhaps you navigated family systems where spoken words contradicted energetic reality. You learned to read micro-expressions, vocal inflections, behavioral inconsistencies because missing signals had consequences. Your perception sharpened, but your boundaries dissolved. Principle 1. The trap of unconscious participation. You believed your purpose was to metabolize other people's pain. You became a repository for everyone's denied shadow material. Their rage, their grief, their unprocessed trauma. All of it flooded your system as if it were your own. He called this unconscious participation. The inability to distinguish between your emotional content and everyone else's. You consumed other people's darkness because you had no framework for understanding that their shadow wasn't yours to carry. The family therapist at 12. The friend who always understood at 16. The partner who could hold space for anything at 25. With each role, you buried yourself deeper under layers of borrowed suffering. You had no boundaries because boundaries felt like rejection. You had no limits because limits felt like abandonment. You said yes when your body screamed no. You became a sophisticated psychological instrument pointed outward with zero capacity for internal calibration. Maximum perception. Zero protection. Complete self-abandonment disguised as compassion. Principle 2. The breaking point as an ideation. It's 2 a.m. You just discovered the truth. The person you protected most, the one you absorbed pain for, the one you believed would never exploit your openness, has been lying for years. They've been using your empathy as a resource to extract. They never saw you as a person, only as a function they could exploit. They try to understand. They explain away what they know to be true. They override their perceptual accuracy to maintain the relationship. He called this the encounter with the shadow, but for the empath, it's more specific. It's the moment you confront your own denied aggression. your suppressed rage, your capacity for severance, all the qualities you've labeled as cruel or selfish or wrong. This is not a gentle process. You don't integrate your shadow through affirmations. You integrate it by acknowledging you've been complicit in your own dissolution. That every time you override your instincts to preserve someone else's comfort, you commit an act of self-violence. The breaking point is when you stop committing that violence. When you look at the person who betrayed you and feel nothing, no desire to fix them, no need to understand them, no impulse to absorb their guilt or shame or justification. Just clarity, cold, precise, unshakable clarity. If this is rewiring how you see power, hit the like button. And if you want frameworks like this every week, subscribe, because what comes next gets darker. Principle 3. The cessation of absorption. The rule of the battlefield: what doesn't enter can't poison. You develop what Jung called conscious differentiation, the ability to observe emotional content without internalizing it. Someone projects rage at you. Before, you absorbed it, questioned whether you caused it, tried to fix whatever you believed you'd broken. Now, you observe it. You recognize it as their emotional content. You see the projection mechanism operating in real time, and you don't take it in. This creates mirroring that functions as deflection. Their content returns to them. They're forced to hold what they're trying to offload. And most people cannot tolerate this. They escalate. They accuse you of being cold, distant, not the person you used to be. They're correct. You're not the person you used to be. That person was unconscious. When someone tries to make you responsible for their emotional state, you simply observe the attempt without accepting the responsibility. The entire manipulation collapses. They're holding guilt with nowhere to put it. And you're watching them struggle with it, unmoved. This isn't cruelty. It's the natural consequence of consciousness. Meeting unconsciousness. Principle 4. Aggressive selectivity. If someone asks for access to your energy, time, or emotional labor without ever demonstrating reciprocal consciousness, you already know what they are. You used to be an open door. Now you're a threshold with conditions, and those conditions are non-negotiable. Jung's insight. Integration means taking every suppressed quality and bringing it into conscious operation. Your intelligence, your capacity for ruthless assessment, your willingness to let others fail, your ability to walk away without explanation, your skill at identifying manipulation before it fully forms, the friend who only calls when they need something, the family member who guilts you into availability, the colleague who treats your boundaries like suggestions. Before, you explained your boundaries. You softened them to avoid conflict. You felt guilty for having limits. Now, you don't explain. You don't defend. You don't soften them to make others comfortable. You simply operate from them. Nice is conflict avoidance. Kind is clarity, even when clarity creates discomfort. The integrated empath stops being nice. They become kind in ways most people experience as harsh. Kind enough to let someone face consequences. Kind enough to refuse enabling. Kind enough to say no without apology. Kind enough to end relationships that exist only through your self-abandonment. You're still capable of profound presence. Still capable of holding space for genuine pain. Still capable of deep connection. But these capacities are reserved for people who demonstrate reciprocal consciousness, respect for boundaries without testing them, their own psychological work, ability to sit with discomfort without making it your responsibility, For everyone else, you become inaccessible, not hostile, not reactive, simply unavailable. Here's what would genuinely unsettle you if you understood its implications. You're not just empathic anymore, you're predictive. Principle 5, the database of human behavior. Every time you absorbed someone's emotional state, you logged data. Every time you read a room, you cataloged patterns. Every time you sensed someone's intent before they acted, you built a predictive model. You collected all this data but felt guilty about using it. You second-guessed your assessments. You told yourself you were being judgmental when your instincts identified danger. You overrode your internal warning systems because doing so seemed more compassionate. Now you trust that database completely. When every part of your system signals deception, you don't need external validation. You don't need proof. You already know, and you act accordingly. Someone sits across from you. Within seconds, you know, they're lying about where they were. They're about to make a request designed to obligate you. They're setting up manipulation several moves ahead. You know because you've seen this exact sequence before. The micro-expressions don't lie. The vocal patterns don't lie. The behavioral rhythms don't lie. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see but few can feel. Most people see surface behavior. You feel the structure underneath. You're processing psychological information at a level most humans never develop. You have a framework built through years of survival necessity that now functions as a sophisticated detection system. You see the game before it starts. Principle 6, power with integrity. You could use this knowledge destructively. You understand manipulation mechanics better than most narcissists. You know exactly which vulnerabilities to exploit, which fears to activate, which wounds to target. You have the complete blueprint. Jung's conclusion: he spent considerable time analyzing why some individuals integrate their power benevolently while others weaponize it. The difference is conscious ethical choice. You make a daily decision to use your capabilities for protection, not domination. You see the shortcuts. You recognize that your understanding gives you unfair advantages in nearly every interaction. But you refuse to take those advantages, not because you lack the capacity, because you've developed something more sophisticated than tactical skill. You've developed integrity. You have the capacity for profound compassion and ruthless precision. You can be gentle or severe depending on what the situation requires. You are no longer limited to one mode of being. Principle 7, the ripple effect. When you stop being the structural support, the dysfunction collapses under its own weight. What happens to family systems? Your alcoholic father can no longer drink without facing consequences because you're no longer cleaning up the aftermath. Your codependent mother can no longer avoid her own therapy by using you as her emotional processor. Your narcissistic ex can no longer control you through guilt because you've stopped feeling responsible for their emotional regulation. Family systems built on dysfunction cannot survive your transformation, not because you're attacking them, because you stopped being the person who absorbed tension, smoothed conflict, sacrificed themselves to maintain false peace. The entire system must reorganize, and that reorganization exposes what was always true but never acknowledged. Some relationships deepen. The people who respect your transformation, who feel inspired rather than threatened, who start doing their own work. These connections become more authentic than they ever were before, but others disintegrate. And they disintegrate loudly. The people who benefited from your unconsciousness will rage. They'll recruit allies. They'll construct narratives where you're the problem. Because if you're the problem, they don't have to change. Your real power shows. You don't defend yourself. You don't explain. You don't try to convince anyone of your worth. You observe. You watch people reveal their true nature through their reactions, and you make decisions based on what you observe. Not with anger, not with bitterness, with clarity. The 5-step integration system. Step 1, morning boundary audit. Before you check your phone, ask, who had access to my nervous system yesterday? Who did I absorb emotion from? Where did I override my instincts? Write it down. This creates conscious differentiation. Step 2, the deflection mantra. When someone projects emotion at you, I observe this. I don't absorb this. Say it internally. Feel the content bounce back. Watch them hold what they tried to give you. Step 3, the 7-day selectivity experiment. For 7 days, respond to manipulative messages 4 hours later, or not at all. When someone guilt trips you, observe without defending. Let one person face consequences you would normally prevent. Document who escalates. Document who respects the boundary. This is your data. Step 4, alliance audit. List everyone who has significant access to you. Ask one question: does this person demonstrate reciprocal consciousness? If no, begin reducing access incrementally. No announcement, no explanation, just unavailability. Step 5, evening integration review. Before sleep, what did I observe today that I would have absorbed last year? Where did I choose my peace over someone else's comfort? What pattern did I recognize before it completed? This builds your prediction engine. Carl Jung documented this transformation across decades of clinical work. And he was clear about what most people misunderstand. Healing doesn't mean returning to who you were before the pain. You can't return. That version was unconscious. You're awake. You're whole. You own every part of yourself. The compassion and the capacity for immediate severance. The gentleness and the steel. The openness and the impenetrable boundaries. You were never meant to save everyone. You were meant to save yourself, and in doing so, become proof that integration is possible. Not nicer, not more accommodating, not more open, sovereign, self-possessed, unshakable in your knowing, immovable in your boundaries, immune to unconscious manipulation. Your sensitivity was never a weakness. It was a sophisticated perceptual system waiting to be combined with boundaries, wisdom, and self-trust. You're not less sensitive now. You're consciously sensitive. And that consciousness transforms sensitivity from vulnerability into tactical advantage. You can feel everything and still maintain sovereignty. You can see the worst in humanity and still choose engagement on your terms. You can be powerful and peaceful simultaneously. Protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's the only sane response to a world that will consume you if you allow it. Walking away from toxicity isn't weakness. It's the ultimate expression of self-regard. Choosing yourself isn't cruelty. It's the foundation of every healthy relationship you'll ever build. If this changed how you see power and sensitivity, subscribe. I break down dark psychology and Jungian frameworks every week. Next video is on the screen. It's about why people who seem weak often control everything. You'll want to watch that. And drop a comment. What's the first relationship where you'll stop absorbing and start observing? You don't argue. You don't defend. You don't prove anything to anyone. You simply see through the patterns, make your assessment, and act accordingly. Usually by walking away so quietly they barely notice you're gone. No drama, no explanation, just absence. This is what a healed empath becomes. Love with operational precision, compassion with strategic deployment, empathy with absolute self-respect. And that combination is one of the most formidable forces in human psychology.